Hello and welcome to another First Watch with the Star Bros. We are excited to have you here and talk about the latest Mandalorian chapter again. This time we are talking about chapter 13, The Jedi. And we're here to share our reactions to it, give you some initial insights into it. I personally have only seen it twice, but my reactions still haven't changed other than the OMG has just gone from maybe lowercase to capital letters now because I'm just so excited about this episode. So, Jan, I want to get your first reactions. What do you think of this one?
Dude, it might be my new favorite episode. I think up until now, so this season's been great, but I think up until now, my favorite episode has been Chapter 8, Redemption. So that was the finale of season 1 with all that cool action, and we get to see Moff Gideon, the TIE Fighter, the Darksaber, all that cool stuff. But dude, I think this one takes it. We get so much stuff that we've been kind of hoping to see, and I think it's a shining moment for Dave Filoni as a director. It's probably, in my opinion, the most visually stunning of the episodes. Just the way that he uses light and dark, the way that he incorporates sort of the Japanese themes of the village, and the conflicts there are sort of like very Ronin samurai conflicts, and it's just got so much stuff to unpack and so much stuff to just kind of fan out about that it's gonna probably stay in the front of my mind for a long time. Though I'm thinking, like, I saw Hal Hickel, who works in the series, tweet the other day that the rest of the season is going to be a roller coaster. So I might have another future favorite episode sometime soon, but this one was just awesome. What did you think, dude?
I agree. I think picking favorites is folly, partly because
Yeah.
you'll always end up finding another one that you like a little bit more, and then you watch another one again later and you go, no, that one's my favorite. Like, they're just continuing to impress us is all that's happening. And my initial reaction was just of pure excitement for the fact that we get Ahsoka finally. It was teased, it was rumored, there was a lot of speculation, and now we have the confirmation there. And if that wasn't enough, then we also got the dropping of the child's name, which was kind of exciting. So there was a lot to be really grateful for, I think, for this episode, for the longtime viewers, for those that have been sticking with the show, seeing them pay off a lot of these stories that you were hoping that we would get, while also introducing a great character. So, and I thought one thing that we could do, if you wouldn't mind, because a lot of fans out there, I think, are pretty split. There's the fans that know Ahsoka, that have seen all of the content with Ahsoka, and then there are those that aren't, and they're just being introduced to Ahsoka for the first time. Maybe they've heard about it, and I think you haven't shied away from the fact that you're still working through some of the Clone Wars and things like that, and I've been able to see them myself. So we kind of have the opportunity to share the vantage point of someone who's kind of being introduced to Ahsoka for the first time, and someone who's seen her story the whole way through now. So me being someone who's seen it, I love this. I feel like it was true to her character. I feel like you got exactly what you expected. Like, she looks the part. I know there are some people, and I agree, like I saw that her leku, I think is how you pronounce it, basically her headdress is a little bit shorter than what it is in Rebels, and there is the concept that it should grow. I don't care, doesn't matter. I actually like the Clone Wars look a little bit better, so I'm cool with it. But at the same time, that's not as important to me as the character and her story, and that is what really resonated and stuck out to me. Was they stayed true to it, and passing the baton between Ashley Eckstein to Rosario Dawson seems to have been done seamlessly. So I'm very happy personally. What about you?
So I wanted to actually throw something back at you, because I've seen enough of Clone Wars to know that Ahsoka goes on this journey as Anakin's Padawan, and the journey sort of ends with her saying that she is not a Jedi, and sort of rebuking the whole Jedi Order and what it means to be a Jedi and so on. But this is chapter 13, and it's called The Jedi. So who is the title of this chapter referring to, if not Ahsoka?
Here's the thing with that, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Of, she isn't a Jedi. That is true to her character. She is more of a gray Jedi, is what people have been referring to her as, where she's not really tied down to any particular order, but she's such a strong force wielder, and she is of power for good, and she is on the side of the rebellion when we see her in Rebels. She's, for all intents and purposes, a Jedi in the sense that she comes from a good place, that she's got good intentions, and that she's always used the Force for good. So I think that's, no matter how much she says, I am no Jedi, or I'm basically interpreting that as I am not part of the Jedi Order, not necessarily she isn't a Jedi, because she can't shake that part of it. Like, that's core to her being and who she is. So I still think it's referring to her, and maybe that's part of the story that we'll explore with her, is how she reconciles that within herself. Because even in this episode, we see she doesn't want to train the child. The name now is Grogu, which is exciting, but she doesn't want to train Grogu because she senses everything that she sensed and saw unfold with Anakin within this child, and she doesn't want to see that happen again. So she's still afraid of her
crazy?
past. Yeah, and I love that.
I love it too.
Now the child is tied to her story just as much as he's tied to the Mandalorian story. So I really hope that we explore that more, whether it's in the Mandalorian or in another series. I still hope it's in the Mandalorian, personally. I think that's where we should see it happen.
I hope so too, but that's a good place, I think, to transition into talking about Grogu. We know his name is Grogu now. And I remember you telling me when we were watching season 1 that you read something with Favreau where, he didn't necessarily love people calling the child Baby Yoda, and him telling the media that, well, he's got a name and we just haven't revealed it yet. And that was over a year ago. So I've been wondering for a year, what the heck is this kid's name going to be? So it's Grogu. And we learn that he hasn't really had a happy life up until this point.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I've been thinking about that, but this is what's been resonating in my head all day today, actually, a few days after watching it. 50 years may only be for this species what it's assumedly a year or two, given where he is mentally mature.
He's still a toddler. Yeah.
Still a toddler, but 50 years of experience is still 50 years of experience.
Yeah.
You cannot dumb that down to just a year. So this child has been through 50 years worth of stuff, and it's deep, and it's dark, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
Imagine doing all that as a toddler.
Yep. Tragedy, fear, survival, having to hide your innate force sensitivity just to be able to blend in and survive.
Yeah.
For decades at a time. I mean, that's pretty painful, dark stuff. So when Ahsoka takes a look at him and says, wow, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of attachment. Number one, she knows from experience. And number two, she probably sees it as her duty to head off any potential huge problems that could come from somebody who is, so talented and force sensitive, having all those negative emotions that they're living with. And we see another potential Anakin Skywalker brewing there in front of us. But also some really sweet and tender moments too, when she has her conversation with Grogu, and Mando's sort of blown away that they're talking, and she says, in a way we are talking, but they're conversing enough that she's learning his story, his history, his name, and everything else, and that's the first time that we really get a chance to indirectly hear from the child himself, and to hear his perspective on things and his story, and then it goes back to him being a little kid again, a helpless little kid again, with the passing of the stone and all that stuff. But
beautiful stuff.
Really, really well done. But now we know that they're headed to the Jedi Temple on Tython, I think it's called, which I actually Googled, and is from a comic book. And I can't remember exactly which series it is, but Dave Filoni, who has been fantastic throughout the series, along with Favreau, aka Favroloni, the two of them.
That sounds like a pasta dish that I really want to try.
The two of them have been really good about taking different pieces of expanded universe lore and other canon material that's never been on the big screen yet, and inserting it in there. So I think the Jedi Temple on Tython is just another one of those things that worked its way in. So I'm excited to see. I don't know if that's the next stop for Mando and the child, or Grogu, I should say. But another big thing that is brewing is the fact that Ahsoka is on the hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn, whose name has not yet been mentioned in the series, but is definitely a mainstay in different Star Wars media. He's never been on the big screen, but he's been in Rebels, and he was one of the main villains in a number of Timothy Zahn books. And he's also sort of a complicated character in that, he's not straight up evil, but he's working on the bad guy side. And I shared with you, I think of him as sort of the Star Wars version of Sherlock Holmes in some ways, just because he's so sharp and smart, and he sees things that other people don't see. And he's sort of just really calculating and all that stuff. So like, I'm wondering, dude, like, are we headed towards some giant battle royale where now there's going to be Ahsoka and Thrawn and Moff Gideon, et cetera, Boba Fett, everybody on the same planet at the same time come crashing together? Or like, how's this all going to play out?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think it's interesting because they've thrown these tantalizing pieces at you with different storylines and arcs and directions where they're each like, they're characters that are by themselves seems like they're on their own path. And to make them all converge, you got to really work at it, and you got to make sure it fits and it works. Like, because the Mandalorian is a solo act. He goes, does his thing, meets some people and characters along the way, and they all go off and do their thing. But this is the Mandalorian show, and it always needs to be. So to make sure it comes together, if you want it to come together, that's fine, but it's got to work, it's got to fit, it's got to feel natural. And now, with how things have been set up, it doesn't, because again, this is the story of the Mandalorian and the direction he's headed in. So the question I have is, if they're not going to come together, is this just them putting in some pieces to fill in with other series or something like that? So again, open to either, just make it work.
No, I agree. And you're totally right. Like, one of my things that I thought about almost immediately was, okay, so we finally got Ahsoka, but is this the extent of it? Is she going to be a recurring character? Because we got Boba Fett in episode 1 of this series, or of this season, and we have not seen him since. So these could be seeds that we're planting just to show the richness of the Filoni version of the Star Wars universe, or it could be stuff that will take root and pay off later. We don't know yet.
Chef Boyardee is just cooking up some Filoni in the kitchen, and I'm waiting for it.
So I wanted to ask you one more question, maybe before we get to our big question. Actually, two more things. So one, on a topic that we were just on. So the Jedi Temple on Tython. So Ahsoka says, Mandalorian, take Grogu to this temple, set him down. It was basically, a beacon that will reach out to other Jedi, and maybe somebody will answer your call. Do we think that somebody responds, and is it a Jedi who we already know who responds to this sort of beacon thing?
Well, there's a few things. Oh gosh, and it's so hard to tell. This is the big question that I wrote down. What is the path that Grogu will choose? So first of all, he's got to go there and he's got to choose it. He may not be very confident right now, but with Mando by his side, maybe he will be. What path does he still choose? Which one's the right one for him? Does he want to go down this path? I think a lot of people would be disappointed if he didn't, but maybe there's a way that they could play it to where if he doesn't choose to go down it, it still makes sense. Like, does he stick true to being a foundling and he declares himself a Mandalorian instead? I don't know. We'll find out. But let's go down the path of, all right, he does choose to go the path of the Jedi. What then? Where does he go? Who reaches back out? Does anyone reach back out? Is this a Last Jedi thing where nobody reaches back out? I don't know. But there's a few on the table people have talked about, and I think the most plausible ones are Ezra and Luke Leia, some combo of the Skywalkers reaching out, and that seems it. It could be though, because here's the other thing. I was a bit surprised that Ahsoka was like, I can't do it. Nope. I think it'd be great to her story arc to finish up and say, no, you know the path that Anakin went down. You need to avoid that in this Padawan here, and wrap that up nice and neat, and have someone Ahsoka training someone is the best thing for the Jedi because she represents everything they should be.
Yes.
So she needs to overcome her fear of that and train this Padawan, train this child. So I think there's a lot of paths that this could lead. It's just I don't know. I'll be open to any of them really.
Yeah, excellent. I think I'm kind of on the same page with a lot of that stuff. I think the best case scenario is Ahsoka takes a Padawan, and Ahsoka sort of sets a new standard for what the Jedi should be. I could see her not doing that, of course. You know, she said flat out that she's not the right one. I do hope that Grogu chooses that path, but at the same time, it seems like his attachment to Mando is so strong, and you know, probably one of the healthiest relationships he's had in his 50 years of life. So, you know, him becoming a Padawan would require him to give that up, and I'm not sure he's ready to give that up. So,
good point.
I think they've set us up nicely where it's just not really clear what's going to come next. And going back to Hal Hickle's tweet, it's probably going to be a roller coaster. And then, you know, I think another thing that somebody brought up recently was, you know, we haven't really had our hearts broken yet this season, and that's probably, you know, one of the things that they still have up their sleeve.
I'd say this series, like it wasn't really broken. Like Quill, okay, yeah, Quill, that was tough.
That was you know, pretty painful and sad, and that was a cliffhanger too, where we didn't know what was going to happen from, you know, from chapter 7 to chapter 8. But you know, at this point, you know, things have been going fairly well. And you know, not to say that they haven't been difficult for everybody, and there's been, I mean, gosh, they started the season with slaying a crate dragon, but you know, from here on out, I have a bad feeling that things will get emotional and really bumpy before they get resolved, and that's got to involve Grogu. It's got to involve disappointment on some level, and yeah, I don't know what to expect. But again, we mentioned this in our last episode. We don't have any other content that points the way at all. We don't have a trailer that shows us anything that we haven't already seen. So we're going in blind for the next 3 weeks.
Jan, do you have a bad feeling about this?
I do.
You have to say that. Say it.
I have a bad feeling about this.
There we go. It's officially Star Wars content now. Sorry, I had to throw that out there.
No, it's totally fair.
No, one other thing, a couple other things that I want to make sure we mention about this episode before we close it, though, is Corvus. We see what this planet looks like, and dude, looks desolate, looks awful. Like he lands there and it's just smoke and burnt trees and brown, and it's just foggy and kind of weird looking. Then they go up to this fortress, which kind of looks a bit bleak. And once they enter it, it looks even bleaker, right? The town in itself looks kind of quaint and nice when it's at its best, but it obviously isn't, because there is a tyrannical magistrate that's ruling the place. And you see, like, as they get closer to the magistrate's second fortress within the fortress, some people outside that are up in, they're basically in stocks but being electrocuted. It's a pretty difficult scene. And then as soon as they go on the other side, they see the magistrate, and she's in this lush, very beautiful, serene kind of place with the koi pond and very Japanese samurai feel, like you said. And dude, I just felt like, man, this feels like Star Wars when I saw that. The planet and the whole setup, and you're glad that by the end of it there was some peace that was given to the area, to that area, because of Ahsoka and Mando. And watching Ahsoka just go to town on them was so fulfilling. Like, she was ruthless. She just throws down, and and just has no time for any bad players like this, you know.
Yeah.
And it all kind of ties back to her experience in the Clone Wars, as she says. So I just thought that was well done. Great job by Dave Filoni to, you know, to direct this, which I think that was this his first directing. He didn't direct any from last season, did he?
He did direct chapter 5 last season, which was the one where they hunted
Yes,
Fennec Shan.
that's
But
right.
that might have been the only one.
Okay. Well, even then, like top notch, and probably even better than that one in terms of directing and the cinematography and everything. So
Definitely super ambitious in a lot of the cool stuff that they did.
totally. So I just had to make sure we mentioned just all the fighting and Corvus itself.
Yeah.
It was pretty great, and obviously pay homage to the great Dave Filoni for all his great work on this character and on directing this episode.
Yeah.
Anything else that you have to say?
Yeah, he's a native son of Pennsylvania, so you know the Commonwealth of PA is very proud to have Dave Filoni. I was joking with some of the other BROAXIUM bros that I'm going to write a letter to my congressman saying that we need to have like a Dave Filoni day in Pennsylvania. But I did want to mention one other thing, a little bit of an Easter egg that maybe might be pointing to something really important in the future. So if you'll recall, when Ahsoka is talking to Mando in front of Grogu, he says something about the child's powers, and she explains to him that that's the Force. And she says these few words: Force is an energy field created by all living things. Do you know where you've heard that before?
Luke?
That's what Obi-Wan says to Luke in A New Hope.
Obi-Wan says it to Luke.
It's exactly the same phrase.
Okay.
And I guess you could see some parallels where, you know, Obi-Wan sort of sets Luke on this path that ultimately leads to Luke's teacher, Yoda on Dagobah. And we could potentially read into it that maybe Ahsoka is setting Grogu on this path by leading him to the Jedi Temple on Tython that maybe will lead him to his ultimate teacher. So maybe there's some parallels there. I don't know, but I thought it was interesting. I recognized those words when they came out of her mouth, and I had to go Google it. And sure enough, that word for word, that line is exactly the same line that Obi-Wan gives Luke Skywalker all those years ago.
That just makes me wonder if now we're going to get a Force ghost at the Jedi Temple. What if Yoda appears to Grogu?
That would be something special.
Wow, that would be. I mean, not get my hopes up for anything, but there's so many great things that they could do now, especially now that the Force is being used more, and like we actually have another Jedi Force wielder, I should say, in the mix here. So could get wild. Brace yourself. Could get emotional. Brace yourself. I have a bad feeling about this.
I agree. It's going to get emotional.
Yep, that's probably the note that we need to end on then. So with that, we hope you enjoyed another First Watch. Please join us every week as we count down to the last 3 episodes of this wonderful season that we've been able to enjoy so far. Hopefully our hearts aren't torn into too many pieces, that they're still able to be mended at the end of all this, because I know that I just have to be prepared for some good stuff, but some difficult stuff to come too. So hands off my Grogu. That's all I'll say to our friend Grand Moff.
I'll second that.
Gideon, if he's listening to this. So
and Thrawn and whoever else has bad intentions. But and also, you know, please connect with us at Star Bros Podcast on Twitter. We've got a Facebook page. And you know, our day job, so to speak, in the Star Wars content universe is creating a podcast called the Star Bros Podcast. So check out the Star Bros on Apple Podcasts or wherever else podcasts are available.
That's right. And with that, we will leave you and look forward to seeing you next time. And never forget, this is the way.
This is the way.